years that the British were in Kenya, the Gikuyu people fought them so hard. And this is what I don't understand. Europe is always lecturing Africa on democracy. Seriously, Europe has no place in lecturing Africa on democracy. Having sold Africans into slavery for 500 years and colonized us for 100 years, seriously, Europe lecturing Africa on democracy is as ridiculous as FIFA lecturing Nigeria on corruption.
Of our African ladies did it. There's this African Kenyan comedian, as in a stand-up comedy. She said some things which are really, really important that the white folks need to hear. And it is kudos for her because she is not like any other stand-up comedian, especially the international ones, especially black standing up comedians who always address the international stages because they try to avoid such kind of topics. But this Kenyan lady went ahead and talked about some crucial things that white folks need to be reminded for their deeds, the things that they did for the black people, you know, especially Africans. They caused a lot of damages to Africans. And so in this video, I'm going to show you and you're going to watch with me, and then we're going to say something at the end of the video. So stay tuned and wait back with me as we say something about the video, because I believe that such kind of things, we need to get a platform to tell them. And it is at this point where if you find a chance where a white congregation is sitting, you need to remind them what they did for the black people. What they did to Africans was not good. So if you get the chance to remind them, that's when she hit the nail on the spot, and it was a spot on thing, and they needed to hear it, and their reaction wasn't good about it. So I want us to watch this video and then come back, say something.
So years ago, when I was little, my brother and I, my father bought us a little pet dog. And it was very unusual because in Africa, we don't keep pets because it's very difficult to love our predators. And Africa has very many predators: lions, crocodiles, snakes, buffaloes, the white man. The people here know everything there is to know about the animals of Africa, but you know fuck all about the African people. You even know the animals by name. Do you remember Cecil? Yeah, you guys remember Cecil? Cecil the lion. Yeah, you know them by name. Do you remember when Cecil was killed? There was outrage. People like, oh my God, the dentist, he had to go into hiding because he feared for his life. People lost their mind. And then Cecil's dad was killed. People lost it. And then Cecil's son. People were like, oh my God. They were in complete mourning. They were like, oh my God. First of all, Cecil. And then his dad and his son. Oh my God. And we're like, guys. We are still traumatized by colonialism. They're like, shush. Can't you see? We hate money. This is how much value is placed on an African life. Right? But you know, I found out that white mothers motivate their children to eat by getting them to think of a starving African. I'm like, what the fuck? Seriously. Like, white mothers motivate their children to eat by getting them to think of a starving African. We just use spices. Because when white people do one thing, it's called one thing, and black people do that exact same thing, it's called something else. Like poaching, hunting. Terrorist, lone wolf, priest. It's insane. So my parents grew up in Kenya during the Mau Mau uprising. And if you don't know what the Mau Mau uprising is, it's basically when the Kenyans rebelled against the British rule because it was undemocratic. And actually Kenya and Britain went to war. You don't know about this war because we won. This is why you don't celebrate it. People are always asking black comedians, why do you always talk about race? Because privilege is taken. That is why. We talk about race to highlight our plight. You know, we don't talk about race to make white people feel uncomfortable. We do that anyway without even trying. And this is it, because people are always asking me, why is it that Africans are such fast runners? I say it's our fastest mode of transport. But the truth of the matter is we are always running away from something. We're always running away from hungry wildlife, hungry tribesmen, neo-colonial legacies. Seriously. So the Europeans arrived in Africa to find a continent without borders, and they started marking their territories using flags. I believe animals do the same, but with urine. And so the Europeans arrived in Africa. They destroyed our cultures. They looted our artifacts. And now Europeans are complaining that Africans are coming to Europe for economic reasons. Why else? To polish our artifacts. Seriously. So my parents grew up in Kenya during a very difficult time. You know, there was a politically induced famine because famine is a very effective weapon of war. But despite all of that, my mother's identity was very clear. She was a strong woman. You know, her identity was crystal clear. Because as a girl, she used to carry food underneath her skirt to take to the freedom fighters. And I was the daughter of sacrilege. As a young girl, I used to carry booze underneath my skirt to go and drink with the other alcoholics. I know for a fact that most Africans don't actually know African history. Most of Africans don't actually know that they were colonized. Most Africans don't actually know that about the slave trade. They don't actually know. This is because Africa is a very young continent. Something like 75% of people in Africa are under the age of 30. And we have been let down because of the lack of knowledge of our history. Most of African countries were colonized, and they were colonized with the use of very grotesque violence. King Leopold II of Belgium killed 10 million Africans in 7 years. And the ones he didn't kill, he chopped off the baby's hands and feet. The Germans in Namibia, they got people to decapitate their families, and so that they could take the skulls back to study. The British in Africa. Why are we not learning our history? And the reason Africans are not taught our history because it's too painful. It's too painful, and people don't actually want you to know the horrors that have been dished out on Africans, because the only thing that they want to show us is that Europeans come to Africa to give us aid. Europeans do not care about Africans. They sold Africans into slavery. And when slavery was supposedly over, they colonized Africans and they turned them into slaves in their own homes. Now, and this history is so recent. It's so recent. We celebrate, Kenya only celebrated its independence about just over 50 years ago. It's so recent. Your parents will tell you this history. We need to insist that Africans are taught our own history to control our narrative. The missionaries did not bring religion to Africa. We were already religious. The reason Africans are religious is because we were already religious. For example, my tribe, the Gikuyu people, we already worshipped Gai, our God, who is omnipresent, who is invisible to the naked eye. And the only thing that made us go into the churches was because our God guy says that we mustn't worship in man-made temples. And therefore we worshipped under sacred trees, and they cut down those trees in order to prove to us that our gods did not exist. We need to know who we are. It's the only way we can move forward, by understanding where we come from.
So that's Njabi McGrath, and now we know a little bit more about her. You can find more of her if you want to, but yeah, I'm going to be leaving this here. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yes, as I usually say, they need to remind us that what they did for the black people is not safe. It's not good. It's so inhumane, and it is so sad that we're still having a number of them who are still having plans of coming to recolonize Africa. Like, who does such kind of thing? You know, we are human beings, and we have our own stand. We have our own conscience as black people, as Africans, and we know how to do things the way we want. The sister who talked about Europeans trying to befriend us by giving us aids. We Africans have realized that even the aids that you're giving us, of course, I know they are important, but we've learned that how we can maximize the mineral resources that we have in our continent, Africa, for our own benefit. You know, that's one thing that we need to know, and African leaders are standing up for this, and we are taking care of our mineral resources. For instance, what Ibrahim Traore is trying to do for Africans, one is safeguarding the African culture, safeguarding the African resources. Just recently, he came up with rules that African schools, the cutting air is illegal, So, and that's thing which is important because there is always power in a person's air, and we as Africans, we need to take note of that. One thing that I would really love to commend the Kenyan lady who talked about slavery, who talked about colonialism. One, she highlights the things, the struggles that Kenyan freedom fighters tried to do. And for example, the Kikuyu, amongst the Kikuyu community, they had people, the freedom fighters, who fought for the freedom of Africans from the hands of colonizer. In Swahili we say mkoloni. And these people really put Africans through a lot, and they need to be reminded for what they did. It was not right thing. And they need to know that we Africans, we are not still the same people who slept. We're not the same people who just watch things happen. We never understood everything which was happening. But today we know things which are happening around us. We know the right things to do. We know that today things are not the same. And we are also taking up spaces in political ideology. And our grievances are being told out there, and everything is being said on the clear. And I'm happy that people are coming out and saying these things, because they need to be told. They need to be told, because for a long time they have taken us for granted. For a long time they've seen us as people who don't reason. For a long time they've taken us up some people who are kind of subhuman, so they need to be told the truth, and that's the truth that they need to know. And I'm happy, extremely happy, that Africans have waken up, and even comedians, even people from different, we are not keeping them. If you see the colonizer's face, spot on, you just tell them through their face, so that they get to know, so that they get to be sorry, so that they get to know that Africans, or black people generally, they want their reparations back for the things that they did. And historically, 500 years ago, it was a sad thing that they did to black people, so that they need to be reminded for the things that they did for the black people. The PTSD that our brothers and sisters in the US are still having until today, because of somebody's telling you that how your grandfather, what they went through, it was so sad. And that's a sad thing. You don't need to make another human being feel like they're subhuman, to feel like they're nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I really commend the lady for what she did. I really recommend her for what she did. It's really important for us to always remind them their mistakes, because even in the Bible, Jesus tells the disciples that remind them, even if they know what they're doing. We'll always remind you that you wronged us, and it is our role to remind you that the atrocities that you did for the African people with African descent, are still living with them until today. The only price that we know that we have today is the knowledge to separate the bad thing and the good thing, because in the past you took us as people who never knew what they were trying to do, but today we are even telling you in your face that what you did to us was wrong. Yes. Thanks to the education that you brought us, we are using it against you, because what you did to black people was so humane, and it needs to be talked about. There is no price that can pay that, even with money. Money can't even pay the atrocities, the separation that the parents had with their children. People in the US, what they went through, the separation, just look at that. That's something which is so sad, and even money can't buy that. So Africans, black people, especially black Americans, African Americans, people with black descent, need their reparations because of the atrocities that they did for the black people. So tell me what you think about this in the comment section, because I believe that we need to talk about these things straight on, without fear, without holding back. Whatever space you are, when you get a chance to address these people, always address them, because that's the right thing to do. So guys, tell me what you think about this in the comment section. If you're watching this video for the first time, consider subscribing to the channel, join membership. You know, it's really important. It keeps me moving. It shows me that, okay, I have people here that I need to do them this, I need to show them this. Yeah, it really goes a long way. Yeah, I appreciate everything, and I always see your comments, and I always make sure that I want to reply to you. I always make sure that I want to talk to you person to person. So see you in my next video, which by the way is just coming after this video.